Every person in God's church has a story, one that shows the Almighty's work in unexpected ways. Here on the TJ Cochran Podcast, we invite those stories in. This is where church friends, leaders, and everyday believers share life, laughter, and lessons learned along the way. Sometimes pastors or musicians, teachers or fellow members in the pews, maybe a missionary with a wild travel story, or a songwriter who has seen God's faithfulness in hard seasons of life. These guests share the moments that shaped their faith, their calling, and reveals to us their part in this church community. I think you're in for a real treat because each of our guests are people who inspire, challenge, or has made us laugh along the way. So thank you for tuning into Church Community on the TJ Cochran Podcast. Hello, greetings and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast here. This is kind of the first of many where we'll have a different style of recording for you. The purpose of the podcast in kind of its inception was that we needed a place to store our sermon materials and things like that. Facebook these days are taking everything down, those live videos after 30 days, and needed somewhere to archive that material. And that's how this began. But in the back of my mind, I have wanted to do something for folks that I know and have contact with and things to be able to have kind of some conversations with them here and there and everywhere with different folks. That way, maybe it is we can grow this church community, folks connecting one with another and hearing different stories of the way the Lord's worked in their heart and their life and things like that. And I'm excited for this to be the very first. So the purpose of this is to have a platform, share a voice with different ones, tell their story, how it is that they came to know the Lord, what it is they do in this church community, how it is they serve the Lord, and just to be able to get to know a little bit more and share some of that with each other. So with that being the case, this again being the first of many, I have my right-hand man here, Brother Scott Thomas, pastor of Pine Ridge Baptist Church in Dallas, Georgia, with me.
All right, good to be here.
And I'm excited that Brother Scott's going to be on our first episode of this church community because he probably will be with me through most, all of the church community episodes that we do in the future. And so to have him somewhat as a guest instead of my partner in crime, my co-host here, I'm very much looking forward to. And so, Brother Scott, I tell you what, why don't you just kind of somewhat introduce yourself as if I don't know you, as if whoever it is listening doesn't know you, and just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from. We'll start there.
Sure. Of course, like you said, I'm Scott Thomas, pastor of Pine Ridge Baptist Church. Been there at this time 13 years, and been blessed to be there. I've been in the ministry 39 years total. Getting old, brother. I tell you. And, but I was raised up in North Georgia, Morganton, Georgia, Blue Ridge, Fannin County, that area, right at the Tennessee line and North Carolina line.
Morganton's got a jingle, don't they?
Yeah. I recorded one time anyway. Right. But that's where I was raised. I was actually born in Tennessee, so Copper Hill.
I actually didn't know that.
Copper Basin. Yeah.
I really didn't know that.
Copper Basin Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dad worked in Tennessee, just across the line there, and it was a hospital all the company men used and stuff. So that's where I was born. I was born in Tennessee. And as for Tennessee fans.
Morganton, Blue Ridge, big booming cities, is that right?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, small town, and mountains. It's where the Appalachians start, Appalachian Highway and all that.
Here's a silly question. We haven't got to a lot of this yet, but we will in a moment. This just came to my mind. Being in that mountain area, growing up and things, how much do you think that has affected, influenced your preaching style?
Oh, definitely.
Sure.
It did at first for sure. A lot. Nowadays it's not big a deal. Some said, well, that just that area, but
Yeah.
when I was growing up, I announced my call when I was 18. I started preaching when I was 18 years old, and of course I got saved when I was 8 years old. But most preachers up there,
Mm-hmm.
they did not believe in using notes,
Yeah.
and you just open your Bible up and
Mm-hmm.
read the scripture, and you just went at it. It's just mountain preaching, and as a matter of fact, they frowned upon you
Yeah.
if you use notes, and and so anyway, honestly, my first message scared to death, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Lasted 10 minutes, but I had some note cards, but I was hiding them.
That's right. That's right. I've heard so many stories of a gum wrapper, small piece of paper, a bookmark, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm a strong believer in the spirit of the law as well, not just the letter of the law.
Right.
So in other words, kind of why we're doing this. If everybody feels like you gotta cheat the system a little bit, write some little something down, then what good is all that then?
Exactly. And so, I realized later when I moved away and I saw a lot of preachers using, notes. Of course, they're just written on paper. We didn't, it didn't have all the iPads and.
I was about to say they have a
phones and all
stroke
that.
these days.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, I got more comfortable with doing notes and outlines and things like that, and started looking into how to do it, and keep my thoughts together and stay on track. So.
Well, I won't mention the one who told me this, nor will I mention the preachers he listed, but I'll give you a generic conversation that this fellow had with me. He was talking about that same thing, about not using notes. He said, some of my favorite preachers are this, and was naming them as if that backs up his story of why he doesn't use notes. But I too knew those preachers well enough to know they certainly use notes.
They
And
do
so,
know those.
just one of those
You
things.
just didn't know it, bro.
Things are not always what they seem,
That's right.
Well, we jumped kind of far ahead. It was just my fault there by thinking ahead. But you mentioned in some of that, though, when it is you were saved, when it was that you were called to preach. Let's fill in some of those blanks there. Let's talk about that salvation experience.
Sure. Yeah, I was 8 years old, like I said. Maple Grove Baptist Church, up North Georgia. And what it was, my family sang. My mom, she sung, and my dad, my brother played piano and sung, and they had a third singer, or another singer. And they went to a revival to sing. And I remember it was on a Wednesday night, that revival. And they sung, and we had the service, and I got under conviction that night. I was 8 years old, and I didn't go to the altar. This was a small country church, no air conditioner, windows raised, back door. When you stepped out that back door, you was outside. There was no foyer or anything like
Vestibule.
that. No vestibule or anything like that. And the door was wide open, and so during the invitation, I was scared, and I was under conviction, and I walked outside, and everybody's standing, and I just stood at the back door, and I was looking straight down that aisle, and anyway, we got in the car and headed home, and my mother asked me, she said, "Son, I want to know why you walked down to church tonight during the invitation." I was like, "Oh Lord, I'm in trouble now," And I started breaking down crying. I said, I think I'm lost. And she told me then, she said, "Son, don't ever run from the Lord. If the Lord's dealing with you, go to the Lord. That's where you can get to some help, And we went on home, and of course she later told me that she prayed all night long and was worried about me. So we went back to the revival the next night because she was very concerned.
Yeah.
She knew the Lord had been dealing with me, and of course she thought, well, he dealt with him first night, and they would deal him again next night. And sure enough, the Lord did. Brother Roy Clore was the preacher. He wasn't the pastor, he was the visiting preacher. And he was preaching. I have no idea what he preached on. I just know that I got there in conviction, and I knew I was lost as could be. But one thing I do remember was Brother Roy, when he gave the invitation, he got right in front of the pulpit, in front of the altar, and he kept saying, "Come on." He was motioning with his hand, and just come on, and the Lord will save you. Just come on. And boy, the conviction was strong. The Lord was dealing with me and drawing me, and I went to that altar, and I was crying, and of course, and just deep under conviction, began to pray. I've often said I didn't know how to pray. All I knew I was lost.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, "Lord, save me. Please save me." And just a matter of a few minutes, all of a sudden, I felt the Lord come in my heart, and it just touched me, and I've never had a feeling like that. I know we're not saved by feelings, we're saved by grace through faith and by the blood of Jesus Christ. But when it hit me, I felt it.
Sure.
And I came up from there, and I was smiling and grinning and shaking everybody's hand, and I never doubted that I got saved. And
That's it.
Amen.
That's it. And this was at Maple Grove Baptist Church?
Maple Grove Baptist Church.
Do you know enough of the background, can think of those days and that sort of thing, to know if this church kind of is more derived from Primitive Baptist, Southern Baptist, Independent Baptist? Do you know?
I really don't know.
I was just curious.
It's just a Baptist church. I know one thing, they didn't have no restrooms. They just had outhouses.
Well,
I remember that. and to this day, it's that way.
Well, there might be something to that then.
As a matter of fact, this was interesting. Golly, it was probably about 10 years ago. I know it was. I had maybe longer than that. Anyway, I remember it was around my 30th anniversary of being saved. So I remember that. And I was up there, and it's off of the 515 4-lane, and it's no dirt. Was a dirt road. I think it's paved now. And I saw that sign, and I thought, I'm gonna ride out there, and I went out there, and there was a church standing, and sure enough, they was having church. They was having Sunday services again.
Right.
This wasn't a Sunday, and anyway, I found out the man who started back, because it had shut down.
Sure.
The church had shut down, and it was a man. He's a preacher. He's a big guy. And he sold flooring and carpet up there, and he was known as Big Jim.
Well, you had just said a big guy. I was expecting you to say Big John.
That was Big Jim, and he's in heaven now. But anyway, I was talking to him one day, and he said, I drove by there, and he said, I saw that Maple Grove Baptist Church sign laying over in the ditch. And he said, the Lord spoke to me, and I just pulled over. And he said, the Lord said, I want you to start that church back up.
Wow.
And he said, I began going through the community and trying to find out, who was in charge, who had, anybody that was involved and all that. And sure enough, he got a congregation back together.
Wow.
And I don't know if it's still going today or not,
Sure.
but and they updated it some, just put in some painted up and
Sure.
fixed some nails
Just some
and
appearance.
things like that. But they did add bathrooms, but it's not attached to the church.
Okay.
It's behind the church, but it's a separate building.
Well, I have had the opportunity, the privilege, blessing to get to preach in, some different churches here, there, and everywhere. And there was a Primitive Baptist church I remember preaching at, and they had Primitive Baptist on the sign. And when you went into the church, had kind of knotty pine all the way around it. Absolutely beautiful on the inside.
Oh, yes, it was.
And the restrooms, I just kind of assumed that they would be non-existent, that they didn't have restrooms or just be detached like that. But they had it in the fellowship hall. And that's just the only part that I've just never understood is we want them enough to have them in the fellowship hall, but just not in the sanctuary. But, I guess.
Well, you're eating in the fellowship hall.
Yeah,
so
well,
you
sure. Different strokes for different folks.
But they built that building but I doubt it's a Primitive Baptist church because I know they had piano and music
sure.
and things like that, But anyway, I was tickled to death, and I actually got to go back in the church and got some pictures and things like that.
I love it.
What a blessing.
So from those days, how quick was the turnaround from 8, you were saved, to the Lord calling you into the ministry?
It's 10 years, and but a lot happened in between there.
You bet.
And of course, we went back to our home church, and that's where I joined New Hope Baptist Church, is also known as Flint Hill. And I joined the church immediately, and got baptized in Creek. The Creek was Hot House Baptist. It was a Hot House Baptist church, but the Creek's called Hot House Creek.
Wow.
And that's where about every church went to baptize, do baptisms. And I guess there's about 8 or 9 that got baptized when I did.
Love it.
And anyway, one story I remember, at a young age, 8, 9 years old, I was very much involved in church and dedicated. And I remember I was a member of the church, became a member of the church, and our church didn't have a problem with this, but they kind of laughed about it. Our church at the time did not have bathrooms. And so my dad was a deacon. And so I'd heard him talk about what the deacons was thinking about, and they didn't know if they could afford it, about, adding bathrooms onto the church and this sort of thing. And we had conference, and nobody brought it up about the bathrooms. And I spoke up, and I, as an 8, 9-year-old boy, and I said, I make the motion that the church build some bathrooms onto the church. I think someone was afraid, to bring it up or whatever. And everybody laughed, because an 8-year-old boy bring this up.
Here's an idea.
And one of the deacons, Carl Williams was his name, he said, "You know what? I'll second that."
He'd been wanting some bathrooms for a while.
Yeah, and they voted on it, and that's the reason that church has bathrooms to this day.
Well, see, you've always been a trendsetter then.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And anyway, I remember in revivals witnessing to people. I remember there was a lady that came to church, and she wasn't saved, and people knew it, and she was under conviction. I remember going to her and telling her, I said, if you don't know the Lord, you ought to go pray, and get right with the Lord, And I remember we had one pastor that came along, and it excited me. It was, 8 or 9 years old. And I just wanted to do something, in the church. I just wanted to do something. I was so involved. And the pastor told me, he said, you know what? That's when we had the board on the wall that showed
Oh, yeah,
attendance
sure.
and all that. He said, I want to put you in charge of putting those numbers on that board every Sunday. And man, that just thrilled me to death. I thought, man, I've got a position now. You know? and I took pride in it, and I loved doing that, you know.
On staff.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Putting the numbers on the board,
Yeah.
man. That's it now.
I love it. And so from that point, kind of always knew, like you said, had the desire to do something. And then I guess there was a make or break point where you just knew that this is the Lord calling you into the ministry.
Yeah. Before that, when I got my teenage years, we actually started attending a different church, and I never got out of church.
Sure.
Never did get out of church, but I did get away from the Lord. And I was backslidden, and really it came when I got in high school and stuff, being a musician, learning piano and singing and stuff. You know, the old devil come along and wanted to put dreams in my head, and you might make it one day and all that sort of thing. And I was entering talent shows and singing, you know, secular music to do it, and then everybody wanted me to sing at weddings. I did it. I can't tell you how many weddings I've sung at and played at. And a lot of times it'd be love songs and secular songs and things like that. And I never got into drinking or anything like that, but I just, out of God's will. Totally out of God's will. And got around wrong people, wrong influence and stuff. And God was dealing with me, and you know, like I said, I never got out of church, but at the same time, I was
just simply not where you needed to be.
Right. And then one day, I was headed out go see my girlfriend, and this truck backed up is at a junkyard just down the road from us, and this truck had junk on it, and there's a rear end of a car. Talking about, you know, like what the wheels connect to. That kind of area was sticking out. And he backed out and hit my car.
Wow.
And when it did, my back glass curved around and it hit that back glass. It made that back glass just fall in. And when it did that, I looked around to see what had happened, and I saw that glass fall in. Well, I didn't realize it had turned my car. And so when I looked back around, I was headed for a ditch.
Yeah.
And went in the ditch, overcorrected, went across the road, and I was headed straight for a tree, head on. And I tried to correct it, and I saw I wasn't going to make it. And I don't know why. I had seen a show how a stuntman took on crashing, and they would lay down in the seats. And I thought of that, and I just laid down over into the passenger seat. I didn't have on a seatbelt. It wasn't required back then.
Sure.
This was in '85, and I just laid down over, and that tree hit on my door, and it caused that door to smush in. There wasn't 6 inches between the door and the console, and the car wrapped around the tree, landed on the passenger side, facing the opposite direction I'd been going. And I'd closed my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, I saw the dash vertical, and I was like, "Oh,
not supposed to be that way."
Right. And you know, next thing I thought, this thing gonna blow. And I was afraid it's just gonna blow up. You know, I mean, after all, that's what always happens in the movies, right?
You're right.
And so I crawled out and come up the bank, and fortunately, I was not hurt in a major way at all. I had one scratch. Well, my hands were scratched up, but I had one major scratch on my forehead, and I didn't even realize it, of course, and it had bled down side of my face, and this wasn't, quarter of a mile from my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the people there, it was definitely their fault, but the people there, I told them, I said, I'm not leaving the scene of the accident. I'm going to go up here, no cell phone, nothing like that.
Right.
I said, I'm going to go up here to my house and call somebody to help us, And so I went up there. I come to the door, and my mom was there, and that had bled down my face, and she saw that, and she thought my whole head was wide open,
Sure.
And of course, went through all that, but I knew beyond all doubt that was the Lord getting my attention, because when I got top of that hill, there was an old man, had no idea who he was, hadn't seen him since. He pulled up and he rolled down his window. He said, "You all right, son?" I was 16, 17 years old. I said, "Yeah, I think I am." He said, "Son," he said, "I don't know you, but if you ain't right with the Lord, you better get right with the Lord."
Wow.
And I knew then this was God
Sure.
speaking to me and telling me,
Yeah.
I can take you out. You better
Yeah.
get right. And so after that, I did get right, and I got away from people I didn't need to be around,
Sure.
and got more dedicated. And it was a year later that God began to deal with me about preaching, and of course I didn't feel worthy, and the old devil just kept telling me about my backslidden days and things I'd done and wrong and sinfulness and all this, and I didn't feel worthy, and I ran from it. But I would I'd stay in my room and just read my Bible, and Mom and Dad would worry about it. They're like, "What in the world's going on?" I wouldn't date nobody. I wouldn't get around nobody, because I got so sick of the world and the friends and all that influence, and I just didn't want it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was my senior year in high school, and the Lord was dealing with me about preaching, and I kept trying to put it off. I ran from it for 9 months, and but I'd hear preachers preach, and I'd think, well, why didn't he bring out this? I see this, I just see things, and of course I get up and testify and all, and so I remember I signed up to go on a senior trip. Now, believe it or not, this was our senior trip. But our senior trip was to go to Germany and Switzerland and Austria.
Wow.
And we was gone like 10 days. And
Sounds like y'all did some extreme things, from mountains, just small country mountain school, I imagine, over to Germany and Switzerland, this whole area.
yeah. So that was my first time flying, and we went over there, and
You'd think from that area, a senior trip would be to Atlanta or something.
yeah, exactly. And but we went to Germany, and when we went, it really bothered me. It troubled me greatly. My English teacher, she professed to be a Christian and in church and strong in church and all this stuff. And as a matter of fact, now I don't know how they got away with this. I guess because it's in a different country, and maybe the age limit wasn't 21 then. I have no idea.
Sure.
But the parents could sign a waiver saying that their kid in Germany could drink because there's certain places we go as part of the culture, and if they wanted to drink, they could. Of course, mine didn't sign it, and I didn't want them to sign it.
Sure.
And there was me and at least 2 others, maybe 3. Seems like there's 4 of us in all. I have a group of about 30 kids or so, and 30, not everybody went, you know,
Sure.
30, 35 kids or something like that. And man, that bothered me. And we went to is a tavern, I remember, and this was in, pretty sure it is Switzerland. And anyway, in that situation, that teacher said she's a Christian and all. She got up, and it was like a beer chugging contest type thing, and she participated in it.
Yeah.
And that just tore me up.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and so I remember we got back. I was not in her class, but she made all of us keep a journal. I still have it. A journal on our trip and all this stuff, and she wanted us to write about our days as we was over there, and then she wanted to see it. Well, one of the things I put in there, I was preaching in there, and I said, you know, the Bible reads the same. I don't care if you're on the moon. I don't care if you're in Germany.
Sure.
It says strong drink.
Yeah.
It's a mockery. And I mean, I let her have it, and I didn't mention names or anything.
That was true in the territory it was written. That's true in America. That's true in international waters.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
I said, I don't even care if you're on the moon.
Yeah.
You don't do that. And she handed it back to me. She said, that's very interesting. I appreciate it.
I bet it is.
And that's all she said about it, you know.
Yeah.
And but after that trip, I knew that I was supposed to preach, and the Lord spoke to me and said, "This is why I want you to preach. People need to hear."
Yeah.
What's
He
right,
let
what's
you
wrong.
see some of that, even down to numbers, like a percentage of you know what you mentioned, how many that kind of stood there without having the door wide open. You know, the temptation there, the opportunity there, and all that, and to stand and to be one of four.
Yeah.
Out of that group. Yeah.
Exactly. And after that, so I was like, but can I really do this? Can I really preach? And I was young, and God
I think the
calls
folks
you.
that go to my church are still asking that question about me. Can he really do that?
They may be doing that with me too, brother. But anyway, so I prayed and I said, God, this afternoon, and this is odd. I know it's strange, but I wanted the Lord to really show me. And so I said, when I always come home, Mama was always there, and Dad was there not long after. Well, that day, they called the school, and they let me know, middle of the day, I had no idea this was going to happen. They said, we got to run to Cleveland, Tennessee. So we will not be home when you get home. And that's what I was looking for. That's what I prayed about. And that the Lord would open that opportunity where I'd be at the house all by myself. And so that was an hour drive from our house over to Cleveland, Tennessee. And I knew they was going to be gone a while, and they wouldn't get home 7, 8 o'clock at night. So when I got home, I turned on a cassette player, and I began to read the Bible, and the Lord got on me, and I preached, and I mean, I just started telling what I saw, and just telling what I felt, and what the Lord laid on my heart, and I just preached, and it's just me and the Lord.
Yeah.
And is on that cassette. And it was, I don't know how to explain it other than the Lord just was showing me that, yes, I have called you. And after that, I never doubted.
Mm-hmm.
I never doubted. I knew. And so, day or two later, Dad come to me and he said, I don't know what's going on with you. He said, you stay locked up in your room all the time. Yeah, and we began wondering if you're going crazy or something, you know, what's going on, you know. And I said, Dad, I said, there's something I got to tell you. I said, the Lord's calling me to preach. And he said, no, you know. And, he started talking me out of it, trying to talk me out of it. And yeah, why don't you wait? You're not sure about this. And we had a long conversation. Finally, I told him, I said, look, I said, I always try to mind you and try to respect you. And I said, but this, I know I've got to do what the Lord tells me to do. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I've got to follow the Lord. Mm-hmm. And he said, I knew then, and what Dad told me, he said, I knew if I couldn't talk you out of it, then you was really called to preach. And he was behind me ever since, you know.
Well, kind of walking through some of that same experience as well, experiencing what kind of a call looks like, feels like, seems like, all of that. Whenever I was a little younger, it would baffle me when I would hear preachers say, if you can talk yourself out of it, then, in other words, they're giving the admonishment not to jump into something. And I understood that still as I was younger. But again, my mind kind of went back to the same as what your mother had told you. You never run from the Lord. I mean, that's just kind of a truth that I held on to, is you don't run from the Lord.
Right.
But as I'm getting a little older, I mean, it's not like I have age on me to, be able to look back and say, boy, do I know much more now. But I can tell there is a progression there, though. I can tell, though, I can understand so much just from walking through. I mean, because whenever I was just starting to preach, 15, 16, 17, I mean, you got a lot going on in decisions that you're making that you don't even realize you're making in the moment, but you're making decisions.
Yeah.
And so through all of that, it is something that if you're that young, you need to hit some brakes, not run from the Lord, but you just need to stand still.
Yeah.
And don't do anything at all.
And that's where I was for 9 months.
Yeah.
I just... And just prayed and read my Bible and prayed and read my Bible.
Worst thing for you to do is turn around and go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But still, a bad thing to do would be to jump ahead and to make decisions that maybe it is that the Lord was really trying to show you something else and you misunderstood.
Absolutely.
Right after I accepted the call to preach, the advice that you gave me was great advice, but as a 15-year-old kid, it almost could seem as if here I am just trying to do my best, and then get slapped with this. You mentioned that there is nothing wrong with realizing that you have made a mistake, and then coming to the church and say, "Look, I have just simply made a mistake." And this is not what the Lord wanted me to do, and I thought it was, and I'm just here to ask you to forgive me and let me serve however it is I can. Yeah. And I never have forgotten that, because that really was the best advice I could have been given, because at any point in time, should that have been true, I just remember that in my mind, that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And if I'm given that kind of information and kind of stuck with it, stayed with it, that does nothing but encourage me that obviously I am doing what the Lord wants me to do. Amen. But then again, if it wasn't, I just knew that I still had somewhere to go, and that was the church.
Sure.
And they would still wrap their arms around me, say, "We love you and we want you to do X, Y, and Z," that sort of thing.
I saw that one time. I saw a young man. He announced his call. He was sincere in it. He really felt like that's what God wanted him to do. Pastor had him to come and preach. And he stood up there and he read the scripture and he talked for a few minutes. And when he got done, he said, "I want to apologize to the church." He said, "I've just realized this is not what God's called me to do."
We're saying in one
Yeah.
One sermon, one
Right.
interaction.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he pretty much just gave a devotion, you know. And he said, the Lord has just spoke to me, and he said, I know that I've made a mistake.
Okay.
And he said, I just want y'all to pray for me. And of course, everybody just loved on him and prayed for him right then, and gave him an altar and prayed with him, and he stayed in church, and that's the best thing he could have done.
Absolutely.
And you know, you see some, you know, they get confused, and they get embarrassed when they realize I've made a mistake, and then they just don't go back to church or get off away from God.
It would have been better for them to be a strong Christian,
Sure,
than for them, you know, to be in a position where they thought they had a call to ministry on their life, turn around, maybe like you said, confused, not even sure, and then that has brought them to where they're no longer even that strong Christian. They've weakened just by their own, what they feel like is embarrassment and things like
Sure.
that.
Being a preacher or a missionary is not the only two jobs in the
You bet.
evangelist.
You bet.
It's not the only two jobs God has. Sometimes He wants people on a pew and doing well at their job in order to support the church and support ministries and things like that.
Well, and you know, for those that happens to, I really feel like that just about every way that the devil can attack a child of God is kind of under the umbrella of discouragement. And when that young Christian moves into that place and they really feel like they're going to do something for the Lord, that's wonderful. Yeah. And then they might be confused, might come to a place where they think they've made a wrong decision. Then really the devil does a great job of just laying that hammer down of discouragement. And it makes them feel as if they have just, you know, done something completely wrong and should be ashamed of it, and they're embarrassed of it. When in reality, it was noble. They were just trying to do something for the Lord.
Exactly.
And they still have an open door to do something.
Yeah.
It just might not be in that same way.
Exactly.
Well, we've gone on here for a little while. We still really got much to talk about from those days. You had mentioned your family had been singing and things like that. You kind of started singing on your own, right?
Yeah. I had after I got right with the Lord, you know, out of that backslidden condition and all, I started singing with a local group out of Ellijay, Georgia, and it's called the Harmony Brothers. And in that group, you know, we was all teenagers, and one of them was Barry Scott. And Barry, he went on later. His first professional job was playing bass for the Perrys. And then he later he would fill in for Gold City playing the piano. He's an excellent pianist, and he'd fill in for Taco, Gary Jones, and from time to time. And then he went on to play bass for Gold City. He ended up, his first singing job was with the Perrys. He took Randy Perry's place.
Okay.
First one, take Randy's place. And anyway, we was in that local group together. And I was in it about 3 years or so. And when I was about 20, 21, I started my own group. Matter of fact, it's because Barry played bass for the Perrys, kind of broke up the group.
Sure.
And I started my own group, and it was me and my mother, and we always had another singer. And anyway, had that group for 9 years. We started out as, it was called New Heart, and then it's called the Thomases, and then it ended up being the Scott Thomas Singers. And so we was going about every weekend, singing. And meanwhile, you know, I had that call to preach. And of course, I preached revivals, and I'd preach a lot of Sundays, you know, where it'd have us to sing. But it just wasn't enough, so I started a radio broadcast.
Oh, okay.
And I had, as a matter of fact, I started that when I was 18, not long after I was called to preach. I started a radio broadcast, and I was working at Levi Strauss, and I was paying to preach, you know,
Yeah.
and I was on 2 radio stations, and back then you could make a cassette and send it. I didn't like it, and so I would on Saturdays. My Saturdays, I'd go down to Copper Hill, Tennessee, and preach that morning at 10 o'clock. And I had a 15-minute broadcast, I think it was. No, it's 30 minutes. It's 30-minute broadcast. And I'd preach there. And then that afternoon, I'd go to Ellijay, Georgia, to WLJA. And at 1 o'clock, I'd preach there.
Wow.
And I'd preach twice on Saturday a lot of times. And so, and then if we was booked to sing or whatever, I'd send a cassette or something, or I'd always have one there at the station.
Sure.
I'd call them if I was sick or something, just play that, you know. So did that, and so that, you know, took me up to about 98, in 1998, and that's when I joined Tony Gore Majesty.
Okay.
Yep.
And while you were, though, singing kind of on your own, Scott Thomas Singers, and before you started singing with Tony Gore, you had been songwriting through that time period.
Oh,
correct?
yeah. And I've been writing songs, and when, you know, we were serious about our group, and I'd heard that Karen Peck did help groups with vocal arrangements and harmonies and things like that. And turned out she didn't live but about an hour from where I was raised. And
Sure.
so when I got in touch with her, she was still with the Nilans at the time. And I had tried to get a hold of her, you know. Like I said, no cell phones, you know.
Yeah.
And finally she called me back one day, and we was trying to prepare for a recording, and she said, yeah, I'll help you, and you can come over and bring your group over, and we'll work on arrangements and things. And I had written my own songs and things like that. And that's when we one day we was practicing God Still Answers Prayers, and she was helping us on the arrangement of it, and we sung through it. Of course, I was on the piano playing it, and my back was turned to her. She was behind me, you know. And we got done, and I looked around and I said, what do you think? And there's tears in her eyes. She said, that song, I know you wrote it, but she said, my group's going to have to record that too.
Wow.
And that's how that came about. And so they recorded, of course, and it went to number 4 in 1993.
How about that?
And she had never had, at that time, she had never had a song to go that high on the chart as her group, you know, Karen Peck, New River. And so it was the highest charting song for her at the time. Honestly, when you get in the top 5, it's like having a number 1. You can't tell the difference as far as selling CDs and things like that. But and getting bookings from it and things. And that's the purpose of it. Is just to be able to get out and sing more and get on in front of more people to sing.
That is the purpose of kind of ranking.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. And so anyway, then in 98, well, 96, Tessa and I got married, and then in 98, my mother's health was getting worse, and I just didn't feel like, you know, I just felt like God was changing the direction.
Sure.
You know, and of course, I'd finished college. I'd been going to college during those years too, and got my business administration degree, and so we in '98, I was actually talking to Barry Scott and I asked him. I said, we was catching up on old times, and we just happened to call. I don't know if I called him. He called me. I wasn't even thinking about, asking about anybody was looking for somebody. And in the conversation, we was talking about old times and laughing, cutting up. And I said, by the way, I said, you know of any professional groups that are looking for a singer or anything? I said, I'm thinking about trying it. And he said, no. And at the time, I forget who he was with. Mm-hmm. He might have been with Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver at the time. And I think he was. Anyway, and then he said, I don't know. He said, we was over in Gainesville not long ago, and he said, seems like Tony Gore's looking for a singer. I said, well, is it baritone or tenor? Because I'm not a tenor. Mm-hmm. And he said, I don't even know. Mm-hmm. And I said, can you get me a number or something? And he did, and called Tony up, and he got back in touch with me, and he said, he said, I'm about to go on a cruise. When I get back, we'll get together. I went from Blue Ridge, that area, all the way to Thorsby, Alabama, 5-hour drive.
Yeah.
And got down there and tried out, and Tessa was with me, and we was there probably 4 or 5 hours, and he was talking to me about singing and stuff and all, and of course he'd had me learn like 2 or 3 songs to try out,
right?
And then I asked him. I said, "Well, I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want my time wasted either." I said, "So, what are my chances of getting there?" I said, "Just be straight with me, because if I ain't got a chance, it's fine." I said, "I'm sure you've tried out several people, and he said, "Yeah, about 50 people I've tried out." I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, is there a chance, like Jim Carrey, do I have a chance?" Right. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm very interested." He said, "I got one other guy I got to listen to, because I promised. I made that promise I'd listen to him." And he said, "But then I'll know for sure."
Yeah. And
of course it worked out, and I came on board and started singing with him. Was there 3 years, and he adds our group, Tony Gore and Majesty. We record some of my songs there. I tell people, I said, I never did like to pitch, because you pitch songs you don't hear back. It's like watching paint dry on the wall.
Sure.
It gets discouraging. It really does. And it's just negative, and I can't handle it, And every song that I've had recorded and made a hit song, or got in the top 40, top 20, or whatever, I didn't even pitch them. People just heard my CD, or just heard it somewhere, and called me up and said, "Hey, we like that song. You mind if we record it?" And that's kind of how that came about. So
much more organic. So from that point, after how long were you with Tony?
3 years.
Okay.
98 till 2000.
And anywhere from local to across the country, even overseas.
Oh yeah. We went as far as Maine. That took forever to get there.
You bet.
And we went as far as Miami, and I thought we never was going to get to Miami. Right. Riding on a bus, and went out as far as Oklahoma and Texas. We never went out to California or anything like that. But overseas, we went to Ireland a couple of times, sung in Scotland as well, Ireland and Scotland.
They received you well, I'm sure.
Oh, Scotland. man, they loved it. And that was an experience. Ireland was, Tony was one of the first groups to ever go to that Metropolitan Church over there. And huge church.
Wow.
And they videoed and all this. he was going to release that,
Mm-hmm.
but something, their equipment is different.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Their technology is different. It was back then, we had VHS, but theirs was some kind of beta system, is different type of tape, and somehow the conversion just wouldn't work.
Sure.
And we weren't able to release it. And then Gaither comes along and releases his that he did on it. It was a big hit,
Sure.
It was like, where's the verse?
Right. That's funny.
I'll tell you this, one of the funniest things that I find funny, it was one year at Quartet Convention.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Skaggs and Kentucky Thunder,
Yeah.
mainly bluegrass, but they did gospel, and he'd put out a gospel album.
Mm-hmm.
And the Quartet Convention got them to be on the Quartet Convention, and it was controversial.
You bet. Yeah.
People was
Sure.
some was happy and some was mad, and there's I remember some of the artists like, I've sung 25 years and they won't put me on.
That's
and,
right, yeah.
and here he comes along, goes big name, and I'm sure the draw was a lot to it and all. So anyway, he was on the program, and of course Gaither vocal band was on the program. And we have nothing to do with the lineup. They stuck Tony Gore Majesty right between those two artists. So I tell people, I said, Ricky Skaggs opened up for me.
That's right.
And I opened up for Gaither vocal band.
That's cool. That's too cool. Well, after you were with Tony Gore, I know that there was some shifts in ministry and things, and it was quite a while before it was that you started singing again, at least, again with either a professional group or whatever you'd like to call or label that. We'll get back to that in between, but go ahead and mention, of course, you spent some time with Ricky Atkinson.
Yeah. We at the time, Sam and Bick, that's Ricky's brother and sister-in-law, they'd always been with him. They were having difficulties in having a child. They wanted to have a child, and they did finally. And but they wanted to take time off the road and concentrate on that, and they was going to have to pay out a lot of money to do that sort of thing, and they just need to come off the road to concentrate on that. And so Ricky approached me about singing with him, and as a matter of fact, he approached Jay Perrick as well. And he and I and Jay got together and sung a little bit, but Jay, he said he just didn't know. And it wasn't going to be like what I'd done with Tony,
right?
Full time, 4 days a week, and all that sort of thing. It was more like maybe 10 to 20 times a year. Ricky was mostly going to do solo dates, but when people were in a group, And Jay at the time, he was a minister of music at a church, and so he was tied to that.
Right.
And so it ended up being Jay said, "Nah, I just don't think I can swing it. Even that little. And we had a good sound. We loved practicing. Anyway, so when Jay dropped out, Rick said, "Well, what about Tessa?" I said, "Yeah, she can do it."
You bet.
And so Tessa and I sung with him for years in 2007, and just so happened at Quartet Convention we was only at, and that happened to be the 50th Quartet Convention.
Yeah.
The 50th year of the Quartet Convention.
When it was in Louisville.
Right. And so that was kind of a highlight.
You bet.
And
those were big days.
Oh yeah.
In Louisville.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was in Louisville, Kentucky, and
stage in the center. crowds all the way around it.
Yeah, they wouldn't. It wasn't up against the wall.
Right.
And the back then, I know with Tony, I don't know if it did with Ricky or not when we was with Ricky, but I know when we was with Tony, the stage rotated.
Right. Yeah.
And it would circle around. And it was awesome, That way everybody got a view of the. You could stand still or you could walk around.
Sure.
Or whatever,
Turning around like that, I don't know how the Dove brothers did all that they did, not get sick right there on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember. I think it's when I was with Tony. It was another highlight was this. It was when I was with Tony. The Spears were retiring, and. So they had a ceremony of all the groups coming through and shaking their hands as homage to their heritage and all they've done through the years, and that was a unique experience, And they gave us flowers to give to them as we come through, and
I love it.
It was a big deal there.
You're talking about the Spear family, as in G.T. Spear. And all of them.
Yeah.
And so,
at the time, it was Brock and Faye.
Right.
And Ben Spear.
Right. So Hope, my wife, Hope, it is that while we met each other at the Alabama School of Gospel Music, Ben Spear had a big hand in that. And Miss Rosanelle stayed on the board and was a piano teacher and taught some music theory and things like that. Was a big part of it, more of a voice than really a teacher in the days that me and Hope was going. But she was doing private piano lessons. And here is Hope, one of her students, and she has no idea who Rosanelle Spear is. And meanwhile, you have one of the other teachers that is Tracy Phillips.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know any idea who she is either.
Played piano for the Perrys.
That's exactly right. Well, and the Gaithers as well, often at different times. And so, all that, and she doesn't know. She doesn't care.
That reminds me, it was in 94. This is when I had my group. And I was dating this girl, and she had no clue about gospel music whatsoever.
If you don't know, you don't know.
And I was a huge Henson fan. I mean that
you bet
they was
before their time,
right? And they had, they retired. They came off the road in '88, but they did a reunion, and it was they did an album called One More Hallelujah, and that was during that time. 94, maybe 93, somewhere in there. Anyway, so during the day, we had a booth up there. This was in Nashville. And we went to the mall that day. And my girlfriend went into the mall, and I did like most men. I sat out there on a bench, waiting on her. And she was in there for a while, and then somebody come out, and I didn't see, but when they got in the distance, I looked, and I was like, that's Kenny Henson.
Yeah.
And I saw him at a distance, and he had turned kind of to the side, and and she was in there, and I was like, I want to chase him down and talk to him, but I couldn't leave, and I was like, golly. And so she comes out, and she said, I said, you find what you need? Yeah. She said, I met the sweetest couple. I said, is that right? And she said, yeah. I said, I was asking him, about my outfit, and said his wife was helping me a little bit, and said, we was talking, and said, they asked me, said, what brings you to town? And she said, oh, it's a Quartet convention. Said, I've been coming, we came to Quartet convention this week, and all this, and he said, oh, is that right? And he said, what's that? And she starts explaining it to him. Oh, it's all these groups, and they're gospel groups, and they get one after another, and it's a big thing. You ought to come on. I might just try that and all this stuff. So that night at the Quartet convention, I had went into the hall to listen to somebody sing, and she was with me. And as I went up in those bleachers, we was up nosebleed section where, nobody paying for seats or anything. We just went up there. And I noticed a few rows down below me, there was Kenny Henson. I was like, golly, this is my chance to see him, and I'd never met him. I knew Ronnie. I'd met him. Ronnie Henson helped me with songwriting when I was 19 years old. I met with him, and he gave me tips on how to write.
You tell me if I'm right or wrong here. This is what I understand. Is Kenny Henson is the one with really the iconic voice. You think of the Hensons, you probably think of his voice. But Ronnie Henson was the great songwriter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so after that group got done, we started walking out, and so did Kenny and his wife, Debbie, that's her name. And so I went up to him, and I said, Kenny Henson, I said, I've always wanted to meet you. I said, I know your brother, Ronnie. I've met with him. He's helped me on the songwriting. He's published some of my songs. And he said, well, nice to meet you. He's terribly nice and all this. And my girlfriend said, this is the couple I was telling you about today. I said, what?
And he said, I ought to try that.
And he started dying laughing. Kenny did. And he said, he said, you should have heard her tell me all about Quartet Convention. Tell me what it was about.
That's so cool.
I ought to come and hear it. And he said, I never let on. And I said, I'm so embarrassed.
It's really cool.
And did you know that night he got sick, and later heard it, through the convention. People were talking about it, and he got bad sick, and they rushed him to the hospital, emergency, and it was that night they did tests and all, and found out he had cancer.
Oh my goodness!
And a year later, in '95, it was in July of '95. He passed away.
Wow.
And something else iconic about that, we was working on an album, and Steve Easter, Rabbit Easter, was helping me mix it. We was doing it was a live album, and he was helping me mix it and mix the video and all. And while we was working on that, Jeff Easter called Steve, as his brother, and said Kenny passed away.
Wow.
And that's how I found out Kenny passed away. I remember it was in July that year, '95. Yep.
So from Hope not knowing who Rosanelle Spear is, and that lady not knowing who Kenny Henson is, I somewhat have a story like this because me and Hope had we had been married for some time, but we were about to have our second child, and I had just started pastoring at Sunrise, like it was first or second week. And we were out in town. I'm pretty sure we were eating at a Cracker Barrel and had met a couple, and I did not know who they were, but the fella had mentioned to me, how sweet my first one was, and that, it looks like we might be, expecting a second one. And we got to talking. We laughed a little bit. And about that time, I invited both of them to church. I said, y'all ought to come to church with us sometime.
Yeah.
I asked, you have a church around here? They mentioned where they were members, but that's all they said. So, you ought to come to the church sometime and be with us. We'd love to have you. And that was really all that anybody ever thought of it.
Yeah.
The very next Sunday, I'm in the choir loft. The rest of the choir is standing there. And all of a sudden, that couple walks in that I invited to church.
Yeah.
And one, that just, makes me happy.
Sure.
That it is that I got to invite somebody. They showed up. And that's really all there was to it. But I was happy about it.
Yeah.
But then I could tell that everybody else started kind of talking a little bit. Like, why are they here?
Yeah.
And about that time, Scott Widener, it is the former pastor's son, leaned over to me and said, did you know that Babby Mason was going to be here? And I said, no, I didn't know that Babby Mason was going to be. Who's Babby Mason? And he said, the lady that just walked in back there. And her and her husband, I said, that's her name? I said, I invited her this week to come to church. Well, I'm glad they're here. He never said, who Babby Mason was. It was just that's who walked in the back. So I didn't think nothing about it. And I got up here and I said, boy, it sure is good to have Miss Babby Mason and your husband, because he never told me who the husband was.
Yeah.
And I guess everybody just thought that I knew who it was. And then Miss Glenda stood up and said, well, we got to have her sing while she's here. And I have just started pastoring.
Yeah.
And I think these days, even not knowing who Babby, I probably would have made a bigger fool of myself and said, now, just hold on a minute. Because,
She sing?
I don't know who it is. I don't know what she's going to sing. I don't know anything about her.
Right.
And I just said, okay. All right. And then I said, well, after the choir's done with, Miss Babby, if you want to, you come around and sing one or two for us. And she started on the piano. I said, I think I've missed something. I think I'm supposed to know who Babby Mason is. When I got home and started to realize, I should know good and well who Babby Mason is. Video after video, Gaither after Gaither, that sort of thing. But,
exactly.
It's crazy how that stuff works. But so a lot of Southern gospel stuff we've talked about. Kind of in between there, you started pastoring church in Alabama.
Yeah. After I left Tony, I pastored in Alabama for 2 years. And, Lord works in mysterious ways. When I sung with Tony, I lived in Bremen, Georgia. And mostly because I didn't want to test my wife to be down there and not know nobody. And here I'm going all the time. And so she'd be around family and stuff. Well, after I left Tony, a church in Thorsby or Clanton, Alabama, called me to be their pastor, and so we moved down there.
Yeah. Tony said I couldn't get you.
Chilton County, same county Tony was from. So I pastored there for 2 years, and then after that, we came back. Went back into evangelism a little while, and that was in 2001, 2002 when we came back, and then it's 2001 just because there's a year there, and then 2002 I became the assistant pastor in Noonan, Georgia. Brother Melvin Payne and his church, and I was there 2 years. And till 2004, and then after that I went back into evangelism, and Tess and I were singing, but we wasn't interested in doing the Southern gospel circuit or releasing singles and things like that. We just singing in churches and revivals, and I started selling church pews. And Brother Thomas was his last, Willard Thomas.
Oh, yeah. The poet.
Yeah. He, I had been in a meeting with him, and I said, I had heard that he sold pews. And so I asked Brother Willard, I said, Brother Willard, I'm going to need a job. And I said, do you know how I could get into maybe selling pews too? He said, well, the company I work for is not really looking for anybody, but he said, get in touch with this company, and he told me who. Jimmy King's his name. He said he might have a way to make you a sales rep, Jimmy got me in touch with Dave Jones, who was doing their marketing and had his own label, if you will, Summit Seating. And so Brother Willard helped me get into the pew business. And I started selling, and that I was in it 8 or 9 years, really until when the recession hit, the Great Recession. It was 2 or 3 years later after that. But I really enjoyed it, and I covered. In the beginning, I just covered South Georgia, but then I started covering Alabama, Mississippi. Yeah. And so I've always been in traveling between singing, preaching, pews. And nowadays, I'm like, you know what? You got all these people wanting to travel and wanting to go, and preachers saying, "Oh, I'd love to preach revival and go all over the country." And I'm like, I've done all that.
Yeah.
I'm tired of traveling.
Yeah. Kind of a side note, you mentioned Willard Thomas. I grew up, and there were two people that caught my attention for whatever reason at Taylorsville Baptist Camp Meeting. One is Willard Thomas,
Yeah.
and one is Brother Jimbo Seaton.
Yeah.
Now, those two, for whatever reason, I always looked up to and thought, man, they are just, they are great.
Amen.
And for whatever reason, even as a kid, not even understanding a call to preach or anything like that yet, for whatever reason in my mind, I thought, when I get older, I'm going to preach like them. Well, and they're different. They're both very different.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know why I picked out those two. But as I've gotten older, I know that I'll never be able to really preach like them because both of them had an older brother that everybody else knew much better. You have Edgar Thomas with Willard Thomas.
Right.
And you have Buster Seaton with Jimbo Seaton.
Right.
I have no older brother. So, I don't know how that works.
Absolutely.
Well, so essentially, with you preaching, you've pastored, you've been in evangelism, you have been singing with different Southern gospel groups, and all of this now, selling pews, you were somewhat a church on wheels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what people would say. I had one guy when I was doing a presentation, he said, you're a singer and songwriter, and you play the piano and you preach and sell pews and you carry those pew samples around. He said, that's what you are. You're just a church on wheels.
Almost as if you're watching an old Andy Griffith episode, and he's the sheriff, and the judge, and all that.
Absolutely,
that's right.
But the neat thing about the selling the pews and all, because of my church background, people really related to me. I could relate to them.
You knew the needs better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understood them, and they felt like I understood them, and it made it successful. And the neat thing was about 50% of our business came from the black churches as well.
Oh,
African American churches, And golly, the neat thing about them, especially the Baptist black churches, if they found out you was a preacher, like they'd want you to come and do a presentation on Wednesday night, like after their service. And of course, I would go early and I'd just sit in on the service with them, And if they found out I was a preacher or a singer or played, they have the mindset. They had the mindset, if you're a preacher, you ask that preacher if he's got a word.
Okay.
And that's just their mindset.
That's a good word.
And and so they expect you to do something, to say something.
Yeah.
And one that there's 2 or 3 through the years, they found out I was a preacher ahead of time. They said, "Well, I have a message." And I preached in those black churches.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Or sing, or
I
whatever.
love it.
And I loved it. And they'd worship with you,
Yeah. Well, from being in all of that, Southern gospel, evangelism, pastoring, if you could just do but one, and these days, you do more one than other. So maybe that answers the question. But if you could do just one, which one do you enjoy the most? Do you feel like that this is your lane more than any other?
Yeah, I know I'm exactly where I need to be.
Sure.
Pastoring and preaching, and as a matter of fact, I still write songs. I love to record. I do love to record. I hadn't done it much in the last few years, but I do love to record and produce and things like that. Write songs, but by far, preaching. And nowadays, preaching at my home church that's where I'm supposed to be. That's what I enjoy. Used to, I loved the evangelism, going from church to church. I liked it because there's a different crowd every time.
Sure.
And And we preach the same things from time to time,
Right.
and all. But
All you need is 5 suits and 5 sermons.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's right.
and but we did more than that.
Sure.
But at the same time, you did go back to what you'd had. But nowadays, it's like I know the Lord has developed me, and it seems like I'm deeper into the
Sure.
Word, and bringing out things that are deep and more doctrinal in nature, specific, and things that might be controversial at most churches, or some I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But at our church it won't be, and that sort of thing. And I just love preaching to my people.
Right.
And I know, and even I've always done topical preaching, and a subject and alliterated outlines, and matter of fact, among a lot of preachers, I got known for alliterating just about everything in my
Right.
message.
Yeah.
But more so lately, I've been doing more verse by verse.
Yeah.
And just expository preaching. Matter of fact, right now, I've started in the book of James, and in the last 2 Sundays, I just started. I've gotten through about 3/4 of James,
Yeah.
of James chapter 1, not
Yeah,
the
sure.
entire book of
Sure.
James. And it's my intention to do all 5 chapters.
That's good. Well, Brother James, he believed that the faith ought to work.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So with all of this, with what we're doing with this Simple Church Community podcast here, is that just being able to help strengthen folks. If you could mention one thing, if you could preach one message, if you could just say something to our church community, there's just but one thing you could say. What do you think that you would choose to say? What would be on your mind, your heart, to say this is what I think that either we need to see, we need to learn, or what would be heavy on your heart?
Honestly, and I see it everywhere. It's not just our church. I see it among many churches. I think it's something that a lot of pastors, they all see. I hear them talking. I hear that, I'm in Facebook groups that are just for pastors and things. And that one thing that bothers, I think, every pastor the most is we're not seeing people faithful
Yeah.
like they used to be. Consistent. There every Sunday. Now you got those that are there every Sunday, but the majority are not there.
It's the minority that is.
Yeah.
There every yeah.
Yeah, it's the minority that's there every Sunday instead of the majority. And it didn't used to be that way, especially when I started out, now I'm sounding like an old timer, but,
Back in your day.
back in my day,
You bet.
especially when I was young, and we're in the last days. And the Bible even says to assemble yourself, and even more so,
So
in the
much
last
more.
days.
That's exactly right.
And we're seeing, it's that falling away. And I think if there's a message to the community of the church, be faithful.
Yeah.
Just be faithful.
Yeah.
And because it's the backbone to the church, it's the backbone to the home. It's what will get you through these days.
Yeah. Consistency would be an amazing thing for folks to experience in churches today.
And I don't think people realize, because I know there's a time I didn't realize it, that, consistency and showing up means so much, not just to the pastor, but to others.
You bet.
When they're out, it's like, where are they, man?
Right.
Golly, we miss them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they come, it's like, wow, they're here. Thank
Right.
God.
Sure.
It's an encouragement just to see people to show up.
That's right.
It's a help,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a spiritual help.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we're probably getting toward the end here. Let's do like a little rapid fire round.
Okay.
Got a couple of few questions here, and you kind of give me some quick answers, maybe, just in a few words, that sort of thing. So here's one that would be very quick. Favorite book of the Bible? Hard not to say James right now, probably.
Exactly.
My favorite book of the Bible is wherever it is I'm studying most of the time.
Right, yeah. I would say maybe Acts.
Acts?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah.
So this is supposed to be rapid fire. Mine's John. Let me just say
Okay.
that. All right. Well, what Bible character do you think that you identify most with?
Paul.
Paul.
Yeah.
Your answer is better than mine. I probably say Peter. I tend to probably speak before I think too much,
Yeah, because Paul didn't backslide, but he certainly wasn't in the Lord's will.
Okay.
And then he had a dramatic situation
Sure.
in his life, and he got right.
Yeah.
I identify with that.
Sometimes I think I'm like Peter in the worst of times, and then I'm like John the Baptist when he's in that dungeon, and then I'm like Jonah whenever he wasn't doing right. I seem to identify with who's not doing the best for some reason. But anyway, so you've got a lot of skills. Here's the next one. What's one skill maybe that you wish you had?
Oh, play guitar.
Oh,
I wish
well,
I
you can
could.
play bass.
Yeah,
Sure.
I play bass, play piano. I can keep a beat on drums, but I know the technique. I understand it. I understand the strumming. I could never get my fingers in place to hold the chord and make it clear.
I hear you. So the Bible says, speaking to yourself, psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing, making melody. These days we have hymns, Southern gospel music, what some might label praise and worship, and we can get off in a long discussion on what we think's right and what's wrong. This is not what I'm asking, but if there is one lane of music that you could only sing in your church, which would you choose?
I'd have to say Southern gospel.
Southern gospel. Yes,
Yeah.
what
I'd have
what
to
you
say
know
that.
most about. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I love the hymns. Don't get me wrong, and but I don't know at least the old Southern gospel.
Yeah.
It really spoke to my heart and really kept me on track and blessed me and those kind of things.
You're talking about the Hensons, from Call Me Gone to the Lighthouse to Soul Filling Station.
Oh yeah,
you turn that on, I'm with you.
Absolutely,
I'm in there for sure. Well, yes, sir.
The one of their last on that One More Hallelujah album, their last album, that one of the well written songs I just love is "What on Earth Are You Waiting For?" What a line!
Yeah,
what on earth are you waiting for?
That's right.
And it's talking about why are you waiting on getting saved?
Right. Right.
You
So in our church community, that's what we want to say. Most of the preachers are wearing, a suit and a tie, and you start to see certain things. A lot of folks are wearing Florsam wingtip shoes. Others are wearing cowboy boots, almost all in their neck of the woods, that sort of thing. What's something that maybe all of us are accustomed to doing that you could just kind of do without?
Well,
now me, I don't know that I'm willing to give up my tie.
Yeah.
But for me, some of it is the necktie. I haven't totally figured out what the purpose of the necktie is.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I want to get rid of it, but I just don't know.
My dad, of course, like I said, he is a deacon, and he wore a suit and a tie to church. But I remember him saying, he said, It's kind of silly hanging an old rag around your
Yeah,
neck.
that's exactly right. Yeah. And I even like them. I like the way they look. I have far too many of them, but I just don't know the purpose of it.
Yeah, exactly. That would probably be mine.
Yeah, sure.
I know now the trend, and I've got some, and I know you do too, but wearing the dress shoe that's got the white sole.
Like a sneaker bottom.
And,
Sure.
and that's become popular now. It reminds me, I heard of, as a matter of fact, my wife's grandfather, when he was pastoring, and back in the 70s, the trend came out of the white belts and white shoes.
Yeah.
And some of the old timers didn't like that.
Sure.
They felt like that looked worldly.
Yeah.
That looked like the world and all. And some come around to him and said, "You need to talk to that and this, and because he's wearing white shoes." He said, "I ain't telling him about that. He can wear what he wants just so he's come to church."
That's exactly right. Kind of a while back, rewind maybe 10, 15, maybe even, I don't know, close to, probably about 15 years ago. You have Ernie Haas and Signature Sound, and they're running around with some of those same things, white and red, either shoes, belts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Neckties tied with a big old knot,
real short,
and they're far too short. That's exactly right. I can't think of their bass singer's name. He sang with like them and what is it, Canton Junction? And
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan, yeah. Actually one of the best bass singers. I mean,
absolutely.
Really, just kind of underrated. Fantastic bass singer. But he was one of them. Just always with little old tie. This don't even come down to your belly button. Just look like Fred Flintstone out there.
Yeah. They did it as a joke. I remember seeing it. I wasn't there, but I remember seeing it, and I forgot who they did. It might have been Gerald Wolf or somebody like that, and I'm sure it was playing and all that. But he was talking about their little short ties or something, and they come along and took scissors and cut his off.
Okay.
Right there on stage.
Well, we're about to get out of here, but in sales, my very first sales position over at University Chrysler in Anniston, Alabama, whenever it is that you would sell your first car, that's something that they do is they cut your tie.
Ah.
Well, about a year before that, I had entered something like in a raffle of sorts, if you will. There's no cost to it or anything. It's just as simple as giving them your email, so it is that they can hound you with marketing, promotional stuff. And if you just entered your email, you were in this drawing, and it was some designer that was going to give out a necktie, some $120 necktie that I would never buy ever. That really doesn't even look much better than what I could get, at either Belk or Goodwill for that matter.
Sure.
Anyway, and about the only thing this has ever happened to me, but I won that, and I won that necktie, and they sent it to me, and I was real proud of it. And I had just started there, and they told me about cutting my tie, and I was wearing ties that, just kind of, you could take it or leave it. Wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And about one day I thought, you know what, I'm just going to wear that nice tie just because I want to show it off. I'm probably not going to be doing much of anything today. They still got me in training. Well, they got busy that day, and they just threw me to the wolves. And I get out there, and I sell my first car, and wouldn't you know that $120 tie that I'd never buy is the one that they cut. But at least I still have it hanging, in my office there as a trophy, but I don't get to wear it. But.
Right.
All right. Well, with all of this, I really want to just say thank you for spending time with me. I'm looking forward to getting to talk to other folks.
Sure.
On this church community segment episode, if you will, as a part of the TJ Cochran podcast. Only reason I named it that, my wife got on to me for naming it after myself, but I said, well, who else am I going to name it after? And the only reason I did that is
Donald
for folks
Trump.
be able to find it and that sort of thing. I think she just thought I had a big head or something, but I didn't know what else to do. So, and we'll have these church community episodes, and just somewhat of long form, could be short, could be long. Just to be able to do kind of what we're doing. And so I just really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
Enjoyed it.
I am. I'm just looking forward
I'm looking forward to it too.
It'll be a lot of fun. So this is what I want to do kind of to close out every single episode. Kind of the last word even said on the podcast would be, I'm going to ask one question, and then you give me the answer, and we'll just call it a day.
Okay.
So first, I want to say thank you to everybody it is that listen. If it is that you hung around for over an hour and a half to listen to us, with this church community episode, I want to say thank you for tuning in. Be sure to be watching for more of these. And listen anytime that you get the chance. If you want to like and subscribe wherever it is that you're listening from, it might even be where they'll send you a push notification, and you'll be one of the first to know, of course, that a new episode has been released, and you can tune in and listen. Share it with somebody that you know and you love. Even share it with somebody you don't like. That'd be a blessing. So this is the question. If you could just use one word to describe an attribute of God, maybe it is an attribute of the Lord that you've experienced most in your life or something like that, what is that descriptor that you would use?
His greatness.
There it is.